Alright, ladies and gents, I wanted to show you guys some God mode settings on here that I've come across in the last week or so. Been tweaking away on these things forever, it seems, and finally found a good one, or several good ones. So as you can see, it doesn't even show up on the 12-hour chart. That's because I took and I put high time frame settings on low time frame charts. So if you back this thing out to say a 30-minute, you start to see where these stronger order blocks do show up, but it's really cranked up in a way so that it only shows you the ones that are a bit stronger. So with that, let's jump in and look at some setups. And at the end of the video, I will show you the settings. I use 3 different God mode indicators. I put it on 3 times, and then I have 3 separate settings for each thing that I need. So I'll show you all that at the end of the video. Anyway, this is the 15-minute chart, and as you can see, this was a beautiful entry, and it really fits rule number 1, where it has to trade away from the block and then trade back into it before the block is valid. Well, this was more than just trade away. It like pumped away. And so this was a very, very strong block, and you can see how precisely it hit it when it came back. Now, when I do say trade away, I mean, anything like this even is a trade away. This part here, this does not look like it traded away to me. I would want to see some gap like this before I would consider it to be traded away. And this would also not really be a valid setup, and the reason why is because of this wick here that punched through the outside of the box. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a bit here, but just to cover the rest of the rules, you want to use the 15 and the 30 for entry. You can use either or, but I would recommend using both, because sometimes your entries will show up different depending on which one. What I'm trying to say is your optimal entry might look different on the 30 than the 15. So as far as stops, set them up outside the box boundary or beyond local market structure. And what I mean by that is, if you'd have taken this entry here, put your stop below the outside of the box or beyond the local market structure. So with that, let's take a look at what this thing does on both the 30 and the 15. So this was our optimal entry here with the 15, and see how it almost completely went through the box on the 30. So that's why it's important to have both, because it'll give you a better idea. Like, you might think on the 30 this thing's about to bust through and this is really not that great of an entry. Well, on the 15 it's showing you that it's really just landing on the very top of that order block, which is perfect. Now over here, this little dangler, you wouldn't have gotten it on the 15, but on the 30 it matches up very nicely with the top of the 30-minute box. And then these guys also are trading on the top edge of the box, versus over here it looks like they're actually punching through. So that's why it's good to look at both of them. Now let's address this guy. So this doesn't even show up on the 30-minute chart. It's not a strong enough block, I guess, to show up on the 30, so you only see it on the 15. But we have this wick that pierces through. And because it didn't trade away here, this really would not have been a valid entry anyway. So once it does trade away, and when it comes back, these seem to work okay if you look for an entry along the outer edge of the box. And if it presents itself, I would then just put a stop loss beyond that wick that went through. Now we do have a bit of a similar situation over here, but the difference here is that this did not bust this high. When it busted the box here, it busted the high. When it busted the box here, it did not bust the high. So with this, I would be looking for more along the lines of continuation, which it actually did, versus over here where it went higher, got rejected, and now if it comes back to here, then I would look to take an entry. So hopefully that makes sense in that scenario. Now I will just walk you through some more trade setups, and then I will also get into profit targets, things like that. By the way, this trade right here, this monster, would have given a beautiful entry. But don't focus on that. If you missed that one, let's look for a new one. Okay, another thing I want to point out is that some of these order blocks are very wide ranges and some are quite narrow. So obviously, like these really narrow ones are going to be less risky. So with these, yes, they work, but you might not want to put on too much leverage or whatever, so you can control your risk. But nonetheless, they would have given some good entries. What we'll look at next here is, let's say for example, if you took trades in here, what were your profit targets? What did those look like? And that's where I have separate GodMode indicators for both bullish and bearish order blocks. What I found is that using one indicator, you could tweak it to be the best performing for bearish, but it didn't perform very well for the bullish blocks. So I took two of them, and for example, like this one, all you see is the bearish order blocks. You don't even see the bullish ones. I unchecked the colors in there so the bullish ones would not show up. And then this guy has only the bullish ones. So let's say, okay, so if you got in here, if you took entries in here, your first profit target would have been down here. And it did come down, trade into this nicely. This guy here, this is going to show you only your most powerful blocks. Versus these guys, they show you a lot more blocks. But nonetheless, the settings on this are pretty dang good. So like for example, we shot off of this one, we came down, and we tapped the top of it, and away we go. So we shoot off of this one, we come down, we tap the top of it, and away we go. And then we come back down, and this guy taps it again, and then off to the races. So as you can see, there are a lot of opportunities actually to just trade this one. And as far as going short, this was perfect. It shot down off the block, traded right back up into it, and then fell. And then later it even came back and retested it one more time before heading off and going on down. This one here was really good. We had that pump last week. We made a bearish order block, we shot out of it, we traded right up to it, tapped it, and then it was off to the races. So I'm not discouraging you from not trading these as well, because these do provide some really good entries. But what I use them more primarily for is managing trades. So I like the idea of really getting down to the more powerful blocks and taking the best entries off of those and then using these others to manage it. And let's see, that about wraps it up. I want to show you guys the settings, but let me show you one more thing here. Alright, so for example here we have a 30-minute block and it's a fairly wide range. So what you want to do is you want to outline the block, then you want to go down to the 15, you outline the 15-minute block, and now, so let's say just for example, you've got this 30-minute block. You want to find where it really boils down to the core of where this block was created. And so you can do that by going down into your time frames. If you go, say, down into the 3-minute, see, this is a pretty dang big range for the 30-minute block. But if you drill down to the 3-minute, you see where the bulk of where this thing was created is actually in the bottom half of the 30-minute block. So with that, you would want to be looking for entries more in the center of the block, so to speak. So hopefully all that makes sense. I am now going to show you the settings. So this is the most powerful one, the one that has the high time frame settings that shows you the least amount of blocks. And that one is simply set at 2, 750, 13, and 1. I'll show you how that looks. So channel length is 2, average length 750, short length 13, count 1. And I also, for my source, I use high-low close 3. Now let's look at the optimal shorter time frame bullish blocks. Those settings are 5, 13, 45, and 1. And then what I did to make that the bearish blocks on this don't show up, I unchecked all of these. So there's only 3 checked. There's your plots background, the high support, low support. Those would be the only ones checked on the bullish block indicator. Here's your bearish ones. The only thing checked on this one would be high resistance, low resistance, and plots background. It's not, so there's multiple plots backgrounds. Just look at this and select the right one. Inputs, channel length is 5, then 23, 9, and 1. So anyway, that's all. I hope this was helpful, and if you guys do trade it and are able to improve it in any way, let me know. I know I'm going to be trading with it quite a bit more, and if I find any improvements, I will let you guys know as well. So let's go get them Lambos, okay? Happy trading, guys. Bye-bye.